What if I told you, Sal, the biggest debt in history is never going to be paid back? Not now, not ever. And the people running the system already know it. They are not going to repay it. Let me say that again, slowly, so there's no confusion. The United States government has zero intention of ever paying back the nearly $38 trillion it owes, not through higher taxes, not through spending cuts, not through economic growth. In real terms, that debt is never getting paid. And if you're sitting there hoping for some miracle, a balanced budget, a responsible Congress, a sudden moment of fiscal discipline, then I'm sorry to say this, but you're living in a fantasy. Because the people who actually control the financial system already understand something most people don't. They know this debt became impossible to repay a long time ago. They knew it 10 years ago. They knew it 20 years ago. And since then, they've been quietly, patiently putting the pieces in place for the largest financial reset the world has ever seen. A reset designed to wipe out the debt, rebuild government balance sheets, and transfer wealth on a scale so massive, it's hard to even process. Now here's the part that's both fascinating and terrifying. They plan to pull this off using two assets they spent years mocking, attacking, and dismissing as useless. Assets they told you were outdated, dangerous, or worthless. I'm talking about gold and cryptocurrency, the same gold governments have been secretly stockpiling for nearly a century, while telling the public it doesn't matter anymore, and the same Bitcoin they tried to crush with regulations, lawsuits, banking restrictions, and backdoor operations, only to suddenly quietly begin treating it like a strategic asset. This isn't speculation, this isn't a conspiracy theory, this is documented policy, this is public data, and it's unfolding right now in real time. And over the next 25 minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly how this financial sleight of hand works, how they plan to eliminate $38 trillion in debt without raising taxes, without cutting programs, and without officially defaulting. Instead, they'll do something far more subtle. They'll pay back the numbers while defaulting on the value. And by the time most people realize what happened, their savings will be worth a fraction of what they once were, while government balance sheets look perfectly clean. Let's begin with the number that should terrify you, but somehow doesn't, because it's simply too large to grasp. $38 trillion, that's the official US national debt as of January 2025. But even that number is misleading because it doesn't include unfunded liabilities, it doesn't include Social Security promises, it doesn't include Medicare obligations. When you factor those in, the real number isn't 38 trillion, it's well over $200 trillion. But let's be generous, let's ignore all of that and focus only on the official figure. Even 38 trillion is mathematically impossible to repay. Here's why. The US government now spends over $1.1 trillion every single year just on interest payments, not reducing the debt, just servicing it. That's more than the entire defense budget, more than Medicare, more than Medicaid. It's now the second largest expense in the federal budget, right behind Social Security, and it's growing exponentially. This is where the real danger begins. This is the debt spiral. To cover that $1.1 trillion in annual interest, the government has to borrow even more money because tax revenue doesn't come close to covering it. So what do? They issue new bonds that increases the total debt, which increases next year's interest bill, which forces even more borrowing. It's a mathematical black hole, a self-feeding loop with no natural escape. And once you're trapped inside it, there are only three possible exits. Let's go through them. Option one, an official default. Just come out and say, we're not paying bondholders back. That would be instant financial suicide. The dollar would collapse almost overnight. Global markets would freeze. Pension funds, retirement accounts, insurance companies, and foreign governments holding US debt would be devastated. Within weeks, you wouldn't be talking about a recession. You'd be talking about social breakdown. So that option, completely off the table. Option two, austerity, cut spending hard, raise taxes aggressively, actually balance the budget and start paying the debt down. To close today's deficit, that would mean cutting Social Security by roughly 40%, or eliminating the military entirely, or doubling income taxes across the board. That's political suicide. Any politician who seriously proposed this wouldn't survive the next election cycle or the next news cycle. The public simply will not accept austerity, full stop. So that option is gone too, which leaves option three, the option every over-indebted empire in history eventually chooses. You don't default on the number, you default on the value, you pay back every dollar you owe, but you do it with currency that's worth far less than when you borrowed it. You inflate the debt away, you weaken the currency, and in the process, you quietly transfer wealth from savers to the state. This has a name. It's It's called financial repression. And this isn't theory, this isn't speculation. It's official policy, and it's happening right now. Here's how it works. The Federal Reserve, working alongside the Treasury, keeps interest rates below the real rate of inflation. Let's say your savings account pays you 2%, but the real cost of living, food, housing, healthcare, energy, is rising at 6 to 8%. That means you didn't earn money this year. You lost it. You lost 4 to 6% of your purchasing power. So where did that value go? It was transferred directly to the government because their debt just became 4 to 6% cheaper in real terms. This is the hidden tax, the silent confiscation, and it's the only viable escape from the debt trap. But this plan, this massive slow motion devaluation, has one critical weakness. If people wake up, if they realize their savings are being drained quietly, they panic, they dump cash, they abandon paper promises, and they rush into anything that can't be created out of thin air. Stocks, real estate, gold, Bitcoin, anything scarce, anything real, anything that can't be printed. And when that moment comes, you get chaos, a full-blown stampede, hyperinflation, a controlled demolition turning into total collapse. So how do you pull this off? How do you inflate away $38 trillion in debt without destroying the economy or society? You need two things. First, an anchor. Something to restore faith in the system after the currency has been debased. Something universally trusted, something that cannot be printed. Second, control of the exit. You have to make sure that when people flee the dollar, they flow into assets that strengthen the government's balance sheet, not assets that compete with government power. And this is exactly where gold and Bitcoin come in, because the US government already holds massive amounts of both. And quietly, systematically, they are positioning these assets as the anchors for the next financial system. Let's start with gold. The United States officially holds 8,133.5 metric tons, the largest gold reserve in the world. More than Germany, Italy, and France combined. Most of it is supposedly stored at Fort Knox, although no full independent audit has been done since 1953. Think about that. 72 years without a real audit, but let's assume the gold is actually there. Here's where the magic happens. On the US Treasury's balance sheet, that gold is valued at $422 per ounce. Not a typo, $422, that's the official statutory price set in the 1970s, a completely artificial number that has nothing to do with the real market. The current market price, around $4,600 per ounce, and rising fast. So let's do the math. At the official $422, the entire US gold reserve is worth roughly $11 billion, not even enough to pay the interest on the debt for a single week. At today's market price of $4,600, it's worth about $1.2 trillion. Better, but still nowhere near the $38 trillion owed. Here's the part most people miss. The government doesn't care about today's market price, they care about the reset price, the value they will assign when the system breaks, because they need to recapitalize. And there's historical precedent. In 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102, making it illegal for Americans to own gold. You were forced, under penalty of 10 years in prison, to hand in all your gold coins and bullion to the government. They paid $20.67 per ounce in paper dollars. Then after collecting everyone's gold, FDR passed the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, repricing gold at $35 per ounce. A 69% devaluation of the dollar overnight. Anyone holding cash lost 40% of their purchasing power. And the people who had gold, well, they couldn't hold it. It was illegal. The government had confiscated the wealth of an entire generation with a single stroke of a pen. Now, imagine it happening again, but this time much bigger, much more devastating. Imagine the crisis intensifying, Treasury bond yields spike to 7, 8, 9% as foreign buyers abandon US debt. The deficit explodes. Inflation surges to 15%, 20%. The system starts to crack. Then the president appears on national television. My fellow Americans, our financial system is facing an unprecedented emergency. To restore stability and confidence in the dollar, today I am signing an executive order establishing a new gold-backed digital dollar. To reflect the true value of our nation's strategic reserves, the official price of gold will be reset to $50,000 per ounce. That single move instantly turns America's gold holdings into roughly $13 trillion in backing, enough to support a new currency, enough to recapitalize the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, enough to make government finances appear solvent again on paper. And here's the critical part. Everyone holding paper dollars when this happens gets crushed. Their purchasing power evaporates as the dollar is repriced downward against gold. But the entity holding the physical gold, it becomes the wealthiest power on earth overnight. This is the great revaluation, the reset, and it's not guesswork. This is the exact playbook used by every empire in history when debt becomes unpayable. But gold alone isn't enough for the modern world, because gold has limitations. It's physical, it's slow, you can't transmit it instantly across the internet, you can't program it, and you can't fully control who owns it, which is why the reset needs a digital counterpart, and that's where Bitcoin enters the story. This is where things get truly wild. For over 15 years, the US government told you Bitcoin was a scam, a tool for criminals, a reckless speculative bubble. Under SEC Chair Gary Gensler, regulators launched a full-scale assault on the crypto industry. Coinbase, Finance, Ripple. Everyone was sued. Then came Operation Choke Point 2.0, a coordinated effort to cut crypto companies off from the banking system. Banks serving crypto clients were pressured, examined, and harassed until accounts were shut down. It was a deliberate attempt to suffocate the industry. Why? Because Bitcoin threatens the entire inflation strategy. It has a fixed supply, it can't be printed, it's permissionless, no approval required. It's borderless, value moves instantly. Bitcoin is the perfect escape hatch from a collapsing currency. And policymakers understood that if citizens could easily flee dollars and move into Bitcoin, the inflation plan would fail. So they tried to kill it, strangle it early, end it before it matured. And then everything flipped. January 2025, a new administration takes office. Within 90 days, US crypto policy does a complete 180-degree reversal. Gary Gensler steps down as SEC chair. The Department of Justice disbands its cryptocurrency enforcement unit. The Federal Reserve shuts down its novel activity supervision program, the engine behind Choke Point 2.0, and then comes the bombshell. March 2025, the White House announces the creation of a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve. The same government that spent a decade labeling Bitcoin criminal garbage now recognizes it as a strategic reserve asset right alongside gold. So how does that happen? How do you go from trying to destroy something to building your financial future around it? Here's the truth. They realized they couldn't kill it. Bitcoin survived. And once they understood that, they chose a different strategy. If you can't eliminate the threat, you absorb it. You control it. You turn it from a danger into a tool. And here's the part most people don't realize. They didn't even need to buy it. The US government is already one of the largest known holders of Bitcoin in the world, seized through criminal cases over the years. Silk Road seizures, exchange hacks, various enforcement actions, tens of thousands of Bitcoin in total. At today's prices, like roughly $100,000 per coin, that's more than $20 billion. But just like gold, today's price doesn't matter. They're focused on the reset price. Here's the roadmap. Phase 1, legitimize Bitcoin, force approval of Bitcoin ETFs in 2024. Pull Bitcoin inside the Wall Street system. Now retirees can buy it inside their 401s, KS, through BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust. It feels safe, it feels official. It's regulated, it's approved. Phase 2, push retail adoption. The average person are told Bitcoin is now a legitimate investment, safe, responsible, something you should have exposure to. But notice how they guide you, not by holding Bitcoin yourself, not by controlling your own keys, instead through an ETF inside your retirement account. You don't own the Bitcoin. You own shares of a fund that owns Bitcoin. It's paper Bitcoin, you're just like paper gold. Phase 3, the government keeps the real asset. While you hold IOUs, the state controls 27,000 plus actual Bitcoin, locked away in cold storage wallets. And this is where the real magic happens. As the great devaluation accelerates, as inflation eats away at your dollar savings, you panic. You look for somewhere safe, and right there, approved, legitimized, and easily accessible in your 401k are Bitcoin and gold ETFs. So you take your melting dollars and pour them in, you do it. Millions of other savers do it. And together that panic buying sends prices vertical. Bitcoin moves from $100,000 to $200,000 to $500,000 to $1 million. This is a closed loop system. Step 1, devalue the dollar through inflation. Step 2, scare the population into fleeing cash. Step 3, channel that fear into gold and Bitcoin. Step 4, retail demand explodes the price of the assets the government already owns. Step 5. At the peak of the crisis, announce the reset. Gold is revalued to $50,000 per ounce. Bitcoin is revalued to whatever number makes the balance sheet work. A new digital currency is introduced, backed by these assets. Old dollars are converted into new dollars at a massive haircut, debt erased, balance sheets cleansed. It's the most sophisticated financial rug pull ever designed. And this isn't just an American play. Look around the world. Central banks have been buying gold at record levels for 3 consecutive years, over 1,000 metric tons annually. In 2022, 2023, 2024, China is dumping US treasuries and stacking gold. Russia is stacking gold. India, Turkey, Poland, Singapore. Everyone is rotating out of dollars and into hard assets. They all see the same reality. The dollar's reserve currency dominance is fading. The US must inflate away its debt. And when the reset arrives, the nation's holding the most gold, and Bitcoin will shape the next financial order. This is a global race to acquire real assets before the music stops. And despite its debt crisis, the United States still holds the largest pile of both. They're positioning themselves to win the reset, even as the current system collapses. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, okay, this sounds insane, but what does this actually look like for me? What happens the day they pull the trigger? Let me paint the picture. It's 2027 or 2028. Treasury yields spike to 9%. Interest payments become impossible to afford. Inflation is running at 20%. The dollar is in free fall. Foreign governments are dumping treasuries. The stock market is down 40%. Banks are failing. ATMs are seeing runs. The system is breaking. And then, on a Friday night, the president addresses the nation. My fellow Americans, we are facing an unprecedented financial emergency. To protect the stability of our currency and restore confidence in the financial system, I am declaring a 3-day banking holiday. All banks and financial markets will close while emergency measures are implemented. For 72 hours, you can't access your money, you can't trade, you can't move funds. The news explodes into chaos, analysts panic, pundits shout over each other. Social media is on fire, pure panic. Then Monday morning arrives, you wake up, grab your phone, there's a notification, a mandatory system update was installed overnight, and there's a new app you've never seen before, Fed Wallet. You open it, your old bank account showed $100,000. Your new Fed Wallet shows 10,000 new digital dollars. A 10-to-1 conversion. In one move, 90% of your nominal wealth is gone. But it doesn't stop there. A second notification appears. Your new digital dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States and secured by our strategic reserves, gold valued at $50,000 per ounce and Bitcoin valued at $1 million per coin. They just told you your savings were vaporized, but they immediately follow it with, trust us. The new money is sound, it's backed by real assets, and because you're desperate, because the alternative is total chaos, because you still need to pay rent, buy food, keep the lights on, you accept it. You don't agree, you don't vote, you comply, because you have no choice. This is the great conversion, the reset. And here's who wins, Awam, and who gets destroyed. Your grandmother living on a fixed pension, destroyed. Her $3,000 monthly check now buys what $300 used to. The responsible saver, the person who did everything right, destroyed. 90% of their lifetime savings gone overnight. Foreign governments holding trillions in US treasuries, destroyed. Their bonds are now worth 10 cents on the dollar. China, Japan, everyone, the United States just defaulted on $38 trillion in debt by paying it back in new dollars worth a fraction of the old ones. But the government, they're not just fine. They're stronger than ever. Their debt is suddenly manageable. Their gold reserve, officially repriced at $50,000 per ounce, is worth $13 trillion. Their Bitcoin holdings, repriced at $1 million per coin, are worth tens of billions. The balance sheet looks pristine. And that irresponsible neighbor who bought a house he couldn't afford with a $1 million mortgage, he wins. His debt just became the equivalent of $100,000 in new dollars. He can wipe it out with a few months of income. Debt is rewarded. Savings are punished. Responsibility is erased. And that new digital dollar, it's the CBDC, the central bank digital currency you never would have accepted voluntarily. But after 3 days of chaos, you're begging for stability. You'll accept anything. And now, they have you. Because this is programmable money. They can limit what you spend, they can set expiration dates, they can freeze accounts if you're labeled a risk. It's the ultimate financial control system, and you walked straight into it because every other door was closed. This is the end game. This is how they erase $38 trillion in debt. Not through taxes, not through spending cuts, through devaluation, revaluation, and reset. They inflate the dollar to destroy the debt. They hoard gold and Bitcoin to recapitalize. They use your panic buying to drive their reserves higher. And then they migrate everyone into a new digital system that gives them total control. It's the most sophisticated theft in human history. And it's legal, it's policy, and it's happening right now, in slow motion. So the real question becomes this: what do you do? How do you protect yourself? But before you can answer that, you need to understand one critical difference: the difference between currency and assets. The money sitting in your bank account isn't wealth, it's currency, and currency is just a promise that's now being quietly broken. Real assets are different. They're things that cannot be printed into existence. Gold, Bitcoin, real estate, productive businesses, commodities. These are stores of value that survive currency resets. Second, diversify away from pure dollar exposure. If everything you own is priced in dollars, you're exposed completely. Hold physical gold, hold actual Bitcoin, like self-custody, not ETF shares. Hold assets that exist outside the financial system. Third, manage debt carefully. Too much debt can destroy you before a reset. But here's the paradox. In a currency reset, debt gets wiped out. Strategic debt can help you if you survive long enough. Fourth, watch what governments do, not what they say. They told you gold was obsolete while quietly stockpiling thousands of tons. They told you Bitcoin was for criminals while accumulating hundreds of thousands of coins. Ignore the words, follow the actions. And fifth, prepare for volatility. The shift from one monetary system to another is never smooth. It's chaotic, it's violent, it's unpredictable. You need liquidity, you need flexibility, you need options when things break. This isn't about getting rich, this is about not getting destroyed. It's about understanding that the game is rigged and positioning yourself accordingly, because the US government is preparing to erase $38 trillion in debt by using gold and Bitcoin as anchors for a new system. And they're using your fear, your panic, your rush for safety to drive up the value of the assets they already own, while your savings quietly evaporate. It's the greatest financial illusion ever performed, and most people won't even realize what happened until it's already over. The warning signs are everywhere: record gold purchases by central banks, Bitcoin recognized as a strategic reserve, inflation staying hot while the Fed pretends it's under control, Treasury yields rising despite rate cuts, foreign buyers abandoning US debt, gold touching $4,600 per ounce, a price that once seemed impossible. The mechanisms are in place, the plan is already moving, the only unknown is speed, so pay attention, protect yourself, and understand this: everything you believed about dollar stability, about government debt, about the safety of savings, is about to be tested in ways most people can't imagine. The reset is coming, the only question is whether you'll see it before it happens. If this video changed how you see the financial system, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next video breaks down the specific timelines and triggers that could accelerate this reset in the next 12 to 24 months. You cannot afford to miss it. Stay sharp, stay prepared, and stay safe.